Good morning and welcome back now to the reading of God's Word. We are basically midweek right now, and we are going to look at the last book of wisdom. This is the Song of Solomon, also known as the Song of Songs. This is a love poem. It's actually written to music, put to music. It is one of the works of Solomon. And even if Solomon is referred to in here as you read it, sometimes it's a little bit interesting to think that this Solomon, with a man of 1,000 wives and concubines, would find such a passion for this one woman. So it's kind of interesting reading, but it is much more than that. It is the passion and love that God has given us for one another. This goes a lot deeper into it than simply a young woman looking to be, looking for her husband, and the husband looking so much for the consummation of marriage with her, so that he can have her. So, but that's what the discussion is, and this book is told mostly by the voice of the woman. There's three primary discussions in here. One, of course, is the Shunammite woman who is looking for her husband constantly, and he shows up from time to time, and then she loses him again. So she has to start searching for him. But then there is the daughters of Israel. There are the daughters who are so excited for this woman in her marriage, and they're also looking for the same thing in their own lives. And then, of course, it's the husband that the fiance husband that's looking for this bride, and he's looking so much for the consummation of that marriage. And then it moves and it continues. What it happens and how it is broken down is, first, it is the sort of what we would call in our world would be the dating side of it. They were pledged to each other. And so they are waiting out this time to be married. And then it goes through the consummation of marriage and the excitement right there. And then it moves on later into what happens after that marriage, once the newness wears off. And it's the growth of these two individuals as they approach life together. And so what we see too is Solomon writes this, and he is writing this as we see in 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 32, that he spoke 1,005 songs, also 3,000 proverbs. And so this is just one of them, but this is called the Song of Songs, written by Solomon. And it supposedly, as a Hebrew poetry, has supposedly been set at the highest of importance, I guess, of all of the Hebrew poetry. So we look at it in that light. It would kind of be like the Holy of Holies in the temple. It is the most precious place, and so this song would hold, or this poem would hold the highest place, kind of like the Holy of Holies holds the covenant of God in its place. So there's where of course, in that covenant, that's where the Ark of the Covenant is in the Holy of Holies. That's the important part. So then we move on. So what we see here is the intimate love between a man and a woman, and a type of love of God for his nation and of Israel. So when we get to reading this, as you read through the love and the passion, and a very descriptive, by the way, of all of the different waiting and the passions and the wanting, and even the description they use of each other. They use animals as part of their description, the doves and the gazelle and so forth. And you all of a sudden, if you were to take that and try to paint a picture of the person that you were so in love with, you'd come up with some sort of a strange looking character. But it is all part of the poetry that we see in this love song. And as we have talked before, it is a love song of progression. It goes from the courtship to the procession of the marriage and the consummation of it, through the honeymoon, and also through its maturity as you read through it. Some of the interesting thoughts that comes out of this, in Isaiah 54 and verse 5, it says, "For your husband is your maker and your redeemer, the Holy One of Israel." So what we're looking at here now is God claiming himself to be the husband of Israel. We know that Jesus came to redeem the church. This is going to be his bride yet in the future. So we take these two thoughts, we take these two things, and we back up and we look at how we read this book of the Song of Solomon. And if we look at it in the idea of it is simply a type, just as marriage itself is a type of the marriage of Christ and the church, it is a type of God's love for the nation of Israel. This is a tremendously passionate love that God has for us and Jesus has for the church. You've heard the word agape love. It is the love that is simply unconditional. No matter what, I'm going to love this person. God is going to love this nation. He's going to love these people. Jesus is going to love his church to the point where even Jesus gave himself. God gave a son to purchase this church. He also told, he made it was the idea of the marriage of God and Israel, and him being the husband of Israel. What would a husband and wife do but have what? A child. And this child is God. Then the child grows up and he what? Takes the bride for himself. This story just moves along very smooth in this as we look at it as God through Israel having Jesus the Son to give him his bride. This all makes a whole lot of sense if we read it in that way. So we have then the story as we read it. We have the discussion here. Part of it, the period of waiting, and it has a message too. By the way, notice that it says, "Do not wake up my love before it's time." So there's a couple of places in there that it makes that statement. And what does that mean? It means abstinence. It means wait on the proper time for those younger people that are looking forward to marriage and those that are in the dating process. Be careful with yourself and wait until the love is woken up at its appropriate time. And that is after the consummation of the marriage and not before. So be very careful with that. And it is the same thing. All we have here is the discussion of the how intense and passionate love is. It's the most powerful thing we have in this world. Love probably, I'm sure it is more powerful than hatred. It is more powerful than anything else that we have. And it will drive us more than anything else can drive us. Because God is love, and we get our love from him. He loves us all. Read this with the idea of God and Israel, Jesus and the church, and it will help you look through the intimate sexual passion of it into a much greater love that we can expect from him. So with that, I pray that you pray that God will give you the insight into this last book of wisdom that we're going to read here. And after this, now in the next video, we're going to transition over to the book of prophets. But for now, enjoy this reading, and I pray that God blesses the reading of his word.